not gonna lie, as much as I loved the first 12 episodes of Komi Can't Communicate, and so therefore I walked into the first episode of its second season saying, it's gonna be amazing, I wasn't expecting it to be quite as amazing as it turned out, mainly because the three sections of this episode, you have the delinquent storyline of a man misunderstood, looks like he's gonna throw down, be a big thug, actually is a pretty nice guy, just can't communicate, and in return thinks Komi is the master of communication, which is probably the funniest joke in the show to date. You have once again, the video game mashup between characters who are just so competitive because they want Komi's love, and then ultimately it just ends in a draw because of course it will. And then you have arguably one of the sweetest moments between Tadano and Komi, which just revolves around dropping a pencil and sharing an eraser. Those three sections somehow delivered a 10 out of 10 Komi episode that, despite knowing it was going to be an amazing episode, somehow sold me more on this show than I was already sold, because I knew I wanted 12 more episodes minimum. But watching an episode like that, it's hard not to want another 36 episodes. That's kind of how I feel. First thing I want to talk about is definitely Tadano and Komi, mainly because that sweetness, that kind of relationship that's been building up is the bread and butter of the show. Tadano is without a doubt the guy who understands Komi on a deep level, so despite all this competition, people thinking he's the average guy, who's Komi's best friend, it's Tadano. There is no competition. Even if she has 1,000 friends someday, Tadano's going to be her number one. It's crystal clear. I think the idea of Komi, someone who can't speak and can't communicate, dropping one of her only pencils on the ground during an exam, so Tadano dropping his own and then getting the teacher to come over and pick up both, and then the idea that he doesn't have an eraser so he has to be embarrassed again, and then she shares half of her eraser. It was nice to see that, because despite it being so simple on paper, given how much we've experienced with these two together, it just makes the relationship between them that much more compelling, as does the numerous sequences, whether it's him teaching her how to play a video game, or the number of times he's just there for her when everyone else is busy being like, who's Komi's best friend? Well, it's the guy who goes out of his way to notice the little things that's bothering her, rather than all the other shit that you guys put her through. The one thing about this show that I don't think I'll ever get over is this stalkerish yandere murder character, because I understand the way that this show is going about things, about how, like, Komi values all her friends, psychos and all. But the idea that this girl literally was gonna kill Tadano in the first season, you know, like, I just can't get over the fact that she needs a psych ward, and seriously, I don't think the yandere tendencies have gotten that much better, just now she doesn't pull the knife out in thin air. She just kind of, in her own internal rage, pretends to have the knife, and shit, to see, you know, just like an otaku and a yandere go at it, I mean, it could have got a lot more violent than it turned out, but at the very least, we got this, like, Mario racing game, which is absolutely fantastic, with the Pokemon kind of, like, overlay with, was it super effective, was it not very effective? It was a very basic situation, all things considered, but I mean, the fact that I think we've all been there at least at one point in our lives, whether it was someone surrounding us or you just witnessed it, you know, someone tagging along who wasn't invited and just pretends like you have to, and it's too awkward to actually get them away. That's exactly what the yandere is, and it was just nice to see that kind of like study session, and just who immediately goes to sleep, because of course they do, to basically the competitive video game and just the mockery. Of course it ends in a sweet moment with Komi saying, "You're all my precious friends," but still, the psych ward, prison ward is definitely calling certain characters, and we all know who that is. But I think in terms of brand new content, the kind of delinquent was an interesting addition that I wasn't expecting, because, you know, the idea of not judging a book by its cover has been something that's been pretty relevant in Komi's episodes for multiple story arcs. And the idea of someone who just, you know, was sick for basically the first week of school, so obviously missed the first week, got too embarrassed, and by the time he eventually got the nerve to go to school, you know, it's been so long. So him looking like this buff menace, coming in with the, you know, the dyed hair, bodybuilder, just, he looks like a delinquent. And I love the idea that he has just as hard of a time communicating as Komi in a lot of ways. So actions that he does, like storms in, walks around the class, goes to the bag, puts his bag down, really for him, oh shit, I don't know where my desk is, I'll just wait for the teacher, right? But it's nice to see those characters who in any other show would be the one doing the bullying get so paranoid of the person that everyone worships and puts on a pedestal, because she has such a glare that it actually sends a chill up his spine to the point that he believes she's a master communicator because she understood that eye contact was the key, and it gave him such a life lesson that no one's given, and ultimately Tadano was able to bond with the guy. That type of stuff is just comedy gold, and I think it works so much better having it be like the intro to this season rather than if this interaction happened in the first 6 episodes or something. Because we've had so much time to really grow and appreciate Komi's communication disorder and how when she puts herself out there, the growth that kind of goes with it. So to have a character come in who has maybe not quite as bad of a communication disorder, because he can say things more than she can out loud, it's just he kind of seems like a bully or a menace to the general public, where she seems like a goddess who can do no wrong. But the idea that that level of misunderstanding can occur in its first episode, the first thing we experience in this episode, mind you, that's absolutely fantastic. It was also great to see that recap in terms of like how they kicked everything off with just such a brilliant... I mean, I knew they would do something cool, kind of similar to how even like Kaguya-sama just kicked off its opening in terms of like the explosion, if you've seen that show. So it's nice to see how they did that, and then just how they tied it together with the idea of only making 13 friends out of her desired 100 was this big, horrible thing to someone who is everyone's childhood friend. 13 friends is a lot of friends. Like, how do you even keep up with that many people and be able to have a deep relationship? Like, a few is hard to keep in touch with everyone, but you gotta leave it to the trope of being everyone's childhood friend who could somehow make 13 friends in a year. Somehow something that's inexcusable, all things considered, but you gotta love the comedy and how they just continue to nail it every single time. I was actually kind of shocked, though, by the ending theme. Not because it was good or it was fun to look at, just the style that they decided to go with. That's actually one of the most stylistically impressive ending songs that this year has shown us so far. The song itself, I think, is great, don't get me wrong, but it's the visuals that really sell me so much that usually with ending songs, you can half pay attention to visually, but you can just listen to it as you're doing something. But the actual aesthetic choice that they went with really added an extra level of charm to an already charming show, all things considered. It's great to be back with Komi. It's hard to say when the reviews are probably going to come on a schedule because we are relying on fan subs because Netflix takes like 3 weeks to start episode 1 and no one's waiting for that. So my idea is most likely Sundays because generally what seems to happen is between the first and second day of it airing, because it airs on a Wednesday in Japan, you get like machine sub translation, people just taking basic translations from the manga, and it's really not that great. And then usually a day or two after those, someone gets it pretty right. I mean, the best subs currently out right now are basically Japanese to French to then an English translation. So there is some French that still was a part of the episode, but it's still the best you can hope for, all things considered. So I guess we'll see where it goes, but just know if it's bad subs, you're not getting the episode until there's at the very least decent subs, because Komi deserves the best. And unfortunately, the best, can take 2 weeks, so I'm not willing to wait quite that long. I'm willing to maybe take a bit of a quality hit as long as they are bearable at the very least. But we'll see where it goes. Sundays, I think, are going to be the day, but only time will tell. But thoughts, if you have any, on episode 1. What did you think? In terms of fresh experience to this world, or if you're a fan of the source material, let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.